Hey, folks, welcome to Shooting Up North. I'm your host, Louis Carlin. We're here right here on the Alliance Pro Wrestling Network. Thank you so much for joining me today. If you're watching for the first time, please consider hitting that subscribe button. If you want to follow me on social media, I'm on Twitter at Shooting Up North, Instagram at Alliance PW Network, and feel free to join our Facebook group, the Alliance Pro Wrestling Network. So, who watched the last episode of Impact on Access TV? I watched it this morning and it was just fantastic from start to finish. Impact Wrestling knocked it out of the hit another home run. It was just a terrific show from start to finish. Absolutely loved it. Having the Briscoes on the show, opening the show was perfect. I'm going to talk about the Briscoes a little later as well. But having the Briscoes open the show was just perfect. Josh Alexander against Moose was another very good match. Wasn't as good as the Rebellion match, but it was still nonetheless a very, very good match. Honor No More taking on Motor City Machine Guns and Speedball Mike Bailey. Terrific match. Steve Macklin cutting a terrific promo. It was just a great match. Great show from start to finish. Absolutely loved it. And we found out that the main event at Under Siege, we officially found out. I mean, I did a podcast on it. I did a spoiler podcast on it last week, but we officially found out that the main event at Under Siege is going to be Josh Alexander defending the Impact Wrestling World Championship against New Japan Pro Wrestling superstar Tomohiro Ishii, who's coming off a huge win over Jonah at Rebellion. That match is going to be just, what's my word, guys? What's my word? It's going to be just fantastic. Just a fantastic match. And Tomohiro Ishii is the perfect opponent for Josh Alexander, because Tomohiro Ishii doesn't lose very often. And I can't recall the last time he lost in the U.S. I'm sure he has, but I can't remember the time he's lost in the U.S. He holds 2 victories over Moose. He's on the indie scene, winning matches. So I can't remember him. I believe he defeated Minoru Suzuki as well. I could be wrong there, but Tomohiro Ishii doesn't lose very often, and the Stone Pitbull is an absolute superstar for New Japan Pro Wrestling, and for Josh Alexander to be defending the Impact Wrestling World Title against New Japan Pro Wrestling superstar Tomohiro Ishii at Under Siege is the perfect scenario for Josh Alexander, because Josh Alexander is not going to lose. Josh Alexander is not going to lose the Impact Wrestling World Championship. He's going to defeat Tomohiro Ishii. And I mean, they could have, Scott D'Amore could have, they could have, Impact Wrestling could have just, let's make it Eddie Edwards, or let's give him Matt Cardona, or let's get Matt Taven, or let's get Brian Myers in there, or we'll get somebody on the Impact Wrestling roster. They could have done that. And Josh Alexander would have been a good match. And Josh Alexander would have won, but he would have won against an Impact Wrestling star. Here, Tomohiro Ishii, on the other hand, an international superstar wrestling in Japan, of course, for New Japan Pro Wrestling, as I mentioned, and in the States with New Japan Pro Wrestling Strong, as well as promotions all over the United States. For Josh Alexander to get a victory over Tomohiro Ishii is really going to get people talking. And they're really going to open their eyes to Josh Alexander if their eyes aren't already opened to just how amazingly great Josh Alexander is. Josh Alexander, in my opinion, one of the best world champions in the world today. And he deserves a crap load of credit for the absolute stellar work that he's been doing for Impact Wrestling and in professional wrestling. I can't recall a bad Josh Alexander match, and I've been following Josh Alexander before he signed with Impact Wrestling here on the indie scenes in Ontario. Josh Alexander deserves every single bit of success that he's achieving right now, and to get a victory over Tomohiro Ishii is going to be just fantastic for Josh Alexander. It's really the international wrestling community is gonna open their eyes to Josh Alexander, because when this match is gonna happen, it's eventually gonna hit New Japan Pro Wrestling World, the streaming site, and it's gonna give all of Japan the ability to see this match, just to see how great Josh Alexander is. And I hope that the heads of New Japan Pro Wrestling watch this match as well, because Josh Alexander deserves an opportunity to go to Japan and defend the Impact Wrestling World Title. Yes, we got the whole AEW New Japan Pro Wrestling joint show coming up. That's gonna be a great show. Not gonna lie, that's gonna be a great show. But Josh Alexander also deserves an opportunity to show what he can do against the top stars of New Japan Pro Wrestling. He's already had a terrific match with Minoru Suzuki. Minoru Suzuki not really officially signed to New Japan Pro Wrestling. He could work for them, but he's kind of he leaves his contract open, so he can wrestle really for any promotion whenever he wants. But you see him often in New Japan Pro Wrestling. And Josh Alexander had a terrific match with Minoru Suzuki. But now Josh Alexander is going to have a terrific match against someone signed to New Japan Pro Wrestling, Tomohiro Ishii, and again, Josh Alexander deserves his opportunity. And as I said, he deserves the opportunity to head to Japan to defend the Impact Wrestling World Championship. He deserves the opportunity to actually be in the G1 Climax tournament that's coming up as well. Josh Alexander, hope he has a long, long run as the Impact Wrestling World Champion because he deserves it. Just a tremendous talent. And he's going to prove on May 7th at Under Siege that he can hang with the best in the world when he defeats Tomohiro Ishii. We all know that he's not going to lose to Tomohiro Ishii. I'd be shocked if Ishii comes out of that as the Impact Wrestling World Champion. I'm going to do a preview and prediction show on Under Siege later on in the week, next week, as more matches are announced, because 5 matches have been announced. But Tomohiro Ishii is, like I said, going to be the perfect opponent for Josh Alexander. People are really going to say, hey, wait a minute. They're world champions, but this Josh Alexander is something special, because he is something special, and he's going to prove it again on May 7th against Tomohiro Ishii. Other matches that have been announced actually for Under Siege, Violent by Design, as we know, taking on the Briscoe brothers for the Impact Wrestling World Tag Team Championship. The Briscoe brothers, Impact Wrestling should do whatever the hell they need to do to sign Mark and Jay Briscoe. Mark and Jay Briscoe went up against Rhino and Heath and pulled a terrific match out of Rhino and Heath. And not too many teams can do that, I should say. But the Briscoes did it. The Briscoes pulled an entertaining match out of Heath and Rhino. And Impact Wrestling should do whatever it takes. Anthem, I looked up to see how much Anthem is worth. Anthem has a $126 billion. They're worth about $126 billion. I think I read that correctly. Let me look that up again. I think they're worth in the billions. They're worth in a billion. If I got that number right, but they're worth in the billions. They have money. So they need to do whatever they need to do to sign the Briscoe brothers. Yes, I'm sure there's a certain budget for Impact Wrestling, but maybe they should raise that budget, bring in the Briscoe brothers, because as I said, the Briscoe brothers pulling a terrific match out of Heath and Rhino, which is not easy to do. I mean, the Briscoes, if you put 2 broomsticks on the floor in the ring and said that they're wrestling the Briscoes will pull a terrific match out of those 2 broomsticks. So and the fans were just were pumped. They were behind the Briscoes when they came out on Impact, on Access. So Impact should do whatever they need to do to sign the Briscoes, bring the Briscoes to Impact Wrestling before Tony Khan just sees what the Briscoes are doing in Impact Wrestling and decides, we'll bring them in. So Impact Wrestling needs to do what they need to do to bring in Mark and Jay Briscoe. Just give them what they want. Just give them what they want. Also on the show, Taya Valkyrie defending the AAA Reign of the Reigners Championship against the woman she took her from, Deonna Purrazzo. Bullet Club, Chris Bay, Doc Gallows, Jay White, Carl Anderson, and the returning El Phantasmo taking on Honor No More, Eddie Edwards, Matt Taven, Mike Bennett, Kenny King, and Vincent. So that should be a terrific 10-man tag team match. I think it's a hardcore war that they're having, but that should be fantastic. I'm enjoying the Honor No More Bullet Club feud. It's really been very entertaining. And also Tasha Steelz will be defeating Havoc as they meet, as Tasha Steelz puts the Impact Knockouts World Championship on the line. So 5 matches announced. I'm sure more matches. Ace Austin match hasn't been announced. I'm sure that'll be announced next week or in the next upcoming days. I'm sure a few more matches will be announced as well. But let's keep our eyes on Josh Alexander against Tomohiro Ishii, because that's going to be something special. Dave Meltzer has already rated the match 6 stars, and it hasn't even happened yet. Hasn't even happened yet. I'm just kidding. He hasn't rated it yet, but he will. It'll well, it's an Impact Wrestling match. So if it was an AEW match, he would probably give it 5 stars, but he won't do it, no matter how good the match is in Impact Wrestling. I don't think he'll give them a 5-star, but it'll be but if it's worthy of 5 stars, I'll give it 5 stars. It has the potential to be a 5-star match. It's going to be an absolutely fantastic, pure fire match when Josh Alexander defends against Tomohiro Ishii. One more thing I want to touch upon. I know a lot of people are saying Impact Wrestling needs to sign some big names. With AEW out there right now, it's going to be kind of tough for Impact Wrestling to sign some big names. So I'm thinking, instead of trying to sign the big name, let's think about one of the last people that they've signed. Speedball Mike Bailey. Speedball Mike Bailey has become one of the most entertaining talents on the Impact Wrestling roster. Every single match that he's had so far in Impact Wrestling and on the indie scene that I've seen since he signed with Impact Wrestling and he was able to wrestle in the States, I mean, he's been killing the West Coast Pro. He's had a terrific, fantastic match against Alec Price for Blitzkrieg Pro as well. So Impact Wrestling needs 10 more Mike Baileys. I would say forget about the big name. Forget about trying to get the big name. I mentioned the Briscoes. That's fine. If you can bring the Briscoes and do what you can to get the Briscoes. But a lot of people say, we got to bring in Bray Wyatt. Oh, we have to bring in Braun Strowman. I'm saying forget those guys. Forget those guys. People saying, "Oh, but you want to increase ratings." Yeah, but how much money are they going to have to throw at a Bray Wyatt? How much money are they going to have to throw at a Braun Strowman? And is their heart going to be in it? Right? You got to think. Would their hearts be in wrestling for Impact Wrestling? It could be, but I hope you understand what I'm saying. I would rather have 10 more Mike Baileys than one Bray Wyatt. It would make for a much more entertaining show, in my opinion. It would make, I think it would bring the fans in. I think the fans, you bring in Bray Wyatt, but fans might want to see a Bray Wyatt, but they also want to see a terrific professional wrestling match. And I think 10 more Mike Baileys as opposed to one Bray Wyatt or Braun Strowman. Well, Braun Strowman with EC3 right now, so they got their own thing going. But 10 more Mike Baileys, I think, is a lot more valuable to Impact Wrestling than one Bray Wyatt. A lot of people are going to disagree with me on that. They're going to say the Bray Wyatt will bring people watching. People will watch the show, more viewers, the viewership will go up. They brought in Kenny Omega. They brought Kenny Omega in, and the 1 week, the viewership went up, and then it just kind of died down. So I don't know how many more viewers Bray Wyatt will bring in, and people are going to say, well, because they're on Access TV. Access TV has a huge reach, so I would rather have 10 more Mike Baileys. And one guy on my mind, definitely Alec Price. They should do whatever the heck they need to do to bring Alec Price in. As I mentioned about the Briscoes, they bring in Alec Price. They're getting a legit potential superstar, and that's one guy I would bring in. There's a bunch of other guys on the indie scene as well. I'm not going to go into any names, but I would rather have, I'm going to say it again, 10 more Mike Baileys than one Bray Wyatt. And I think that's what Impact Wrestling should start looking at right now, because AEW just is like a sponge. They're just like a sponge, and they're just sucking everybody in, right? So I think the Impact Wrestling needs to switch gears a little bit. They need to come up with a little different strategy, and they need to start scouting the independent scene. Think about what's going on with Gut Check. The last 2 Gut Check winners, Jason Hotch, and I don't even remember the the other guy's name, because it's like they won the gut check 2022, and they kind of just disappeared. We haven't heard anything about them. Jack Price, I looked it up here. So Jason Hodge and Jack Price were the 2022 gut check winners. Are they each won a developmental contract with Impact Wrestling? Are they in the Impact developmental? What's going on with them? Are they trading? Are they working towards the Impact Wrestling debut? I went on their Twitter feed to see if anything is happening with that, but it looks like they're just still wrestling on independent shows. Um, so I don't know what to do. And of course, I got to talk about Jackson Stone. That's another potentially young superstar there, and they just he won gut check in, I was like 2019 or 2020. I think it was 2019 actually. He won gut check. We haven't seen him. We've seen him 3 times, and that's it. So, like, if they want to give out the gut check contracts, fine. But let's get these guys into some sort of developmental. I thought maybe they would be in OVW. I know Jackson Snow was in OVW a little bit, but I don't think Jason Hodge and Jack Price are in OVW right now. I have at least I haven't seen anything about it on their social media, so I don't know. But they need to. Impact Wrestling needs to. They need to get a new strategy. Instead of trying to sign bigger names, because, like I said, the AEW sponge is sucking them all in, right? They're sucking them all in. So Impact Wrestling needs to get a talent scout if they don't already have one, or they need to subscribe to Independent Wrestling TV or something, and they need to scope out the top indie talents in the United States and Canada and Mexico, all over the world, and start with IWTV. You're not getting shows. Well, you are kind of getting shows from Japan, and but you're getting. I think they still have some shows from Japan, but anyway, yeah, you're catching my drift on this one. They need to get some talent scouts out there, look for some top indie talent. Like there's a guy. There's a guy, Marcus Mathers, who has potential to be a great star. There's a Dustin Waller. There's Kylon King that have potential to be absolute stars. The Miracle, um, I think it's the Miracle Generation is what they're called. Hold on, I want to get it right. It's the Miracle Generation. Dustin Waller and Kylon King are just absolutely killing it on the independent tag team scene, and these are potentially superstars of professional wrestling. So that's what Impact Wrestling, my opinion, needs to start doing right now, because they're not going to outbid AEW for top stars. They're not going to outbid the WWE for top talent. So they need to start. They need to start working on a different strategy, in my opinion, if they haven't already started working on that. Yes, they brought in Speedball Mike Bailey, which was terrific, but we need, instead of seeing all the, because there's a lot of guys, Willie Mack, they're cutting his contract from what I've been reading. The Good Brothers, they're not close to negotiate. They're agreeing on a new contract with Impact Wrestling, so there's potential that they might be leaving. Jonah, who they had signed to a short-term deal, looks like he's finishing up, or he's done with Impact Wrestling. I was just reading Brian Myers today. He's no longer under contract with Impact Wrestling. He mentioned it on the Battleground podcast. So that's what Impact needs to do. Let's bring in some top indie talent, and let's showcase them on Impact Wrestling. So that's what I feel they need to do. They need to find 10 more Speedball Mike Baileys, and let's get it rolling. Let's get some young, exciting stars, infused into the Impact Wrestling roster. Alrighty, so that's it for me. I'm going to leave it at that for now. I have my Under Siege preview and prediction show, which will be coming up later in the week. But of course, anything breaks, I'll be back today. But until then, thank you very much. Take care. Bye-bye. Stay safe, everyone. So long. Bye-bye.